So I just want to give you a heads up on another piece of code, which is nice, and you could find this at my GitHub under HTML, CSS, right here. By the way, I feel like a mouse or a rat in the lab, because I'm totally like, cool, I'm on my longest streak ever, and I don't want it to stop. I'm like completely being influenced by game design and website gamification. It's like, I gotta keep going every day, code. It's funny.
Oh, okay, there's some darker.
Huh?
How dark they are, we can't see. We can only see a couple of the darker ones.
Yeah, that's the part right there, though. My longest streak, my current streak, 15 days. Awesome. All right. So, yeah, the reason I went there, I don't know if I showed this, but this repo here, HTML, CSS, where you can find this code. Okay, so the code is LBR homage, and I showed you this last week. I just kind of want to give you an update. So I really cleaned up the code, got it down to its bare essentials. And I don't know if anybody else speaks of this way, but I call this above the fold design. So what is the person going to see above the fold? So in design, above the fold is comes from newspaper days where they're creating newspaper. You guys heard of newspapers? Have you seen those before? They have them on newsstands, and it would be like a stack of newspapers, and then what the person saw when they were walking by in the street and they looked at the stack of newspapers, that front page, that's above the fold. The front page actually has more beneath the fold, but what is the customer seeing above the fold when they give it a glance, right? So that's above the fold in design. So in web design, above the fold is the page, and here is everything below the fold when I start to scroll, right? And so how do you build a website where your above the fold is always controlled? So no matter the size of the device, my above the fold is always the same, right? Like the content that I'm showing above the fold. So that's I really haven't seen that talked about in design, in web design, or how do you achieve that with, Flexbox. And anyhow, I was just super excited myself to figure out how to do this design with above the fold.
It is important, and Google does mention above the fold is part of their what's it called, the no JavaScript effort.
AMP.
AMP, yeah. They do mention above the fold in their AMP project. So, and it is important though, completely, especially if you can get your above the fold loading fast. You can spend almost as much time as you want loading the rest of the page.
Yeah, 'cause people take a couple of seconds to take in above the fold, read it, look at the image. Okay, what else is here? So that's the first thing, which is really great about this code sample, is you always have the above the fold that you want now, right? That you want. And then no matter what screen resolution, you'll notice the header also changes, right? And it flexes, so fits the screen well. So nice media queries. And then as you scroll down, no matter what resolution you're on, right, you're also getting content displaying well. And same with the articles. Right. And then you have these. I'd probably put these up here, right beneath. So maybe they have navigation right under that. So as soon as you scrolled, you'd see navigation, and then you'd have content.
This would be a good choice for a hamburger menu as well.
Yeah, maybe a hamburger menu up here on the left or something.
It's possible to make a hamburger menu with just pure CSS.
So I just wanted to point that out, that you could go pick through that and take a look at how it's working. I really like Flexbox. It's pretty neat. All right, quit showing that. So the next deal, what's next? Done with that one. We could look more at Google Cloud Storage, and I could show you the files I added, or we could go look at the to-do list and see how Ajax is being implemented in that, or we could do both. All right, so how many people want to see the new GCS files and just sort of get a walkthrough on that, and then Ajax? Raise your hand. And how many people just want to go straight to the to-do list Ajax? Okay, cool. All right, so just a little bit of a reminder for the put file. Right, so put file, storage, new client. And then once we have a client, we could do the bucket deal. And this is our bucket and object, give it the name of what we want to name this file, and then new writer, and then IO copy, which is basically the file, and we're writing it to this writer, and that stores it in Google Cloud.
In this case, you'd probably want to check for errors on IO copy as well.
What? Live dangerously. Yeah, it'd be a really good idea to check for errors.
Yeah, that's the biggest annoyance of Go is how much error checking you've got to do everywhere. So it's a good thing though, because a lot of languages will just crash on error, or throw an exception. Then you have to know what exception type it is so you can catch it. Whereas Go just kind of explicitly returns it, so you can easily see, oh, there's an error coming out of this function. I can check that and do something based off of what the error is, or respond to it in some way. Whereas a lot of other languages, like Python, for example, you don't even know there's an error coming out of that. There's a possible error coming out of that unless you look through the docs. And then you have to go, okay, what type of error is this, so I can catch this particular type of error. So Go, you have to stutter almost a little bit doing all the error checking, but in return, you got the errors explicitly, which makes it very easy to see. Oh, it's possible for this to not work. Let's make sure I can handle that particular situation, which makes it so you're more likely to have your robust production code.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really like hearing your perspective on error handling in Go versus other languages.
But then you got the annoyance of writing all the time, which is kind of bad. Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, it's like so much better than try catch. Like in Java, try catch, I was just like,
what error does this throw? Do I have to catch it?
Yeah.
Is this really important?
Yeah. And then if you truly want to make your code robust, it's just full of try catch everywhere. You know, and so I really like, for me, that it's almost like scope. You know, you want to have a narrow scope for your variables and not have globals. It's kind of like doing the same thing with error handling. It's like, let's get errors specific to right where they're occurring, you know, and handle it right there and do something with it. So I think it's great. All right, so that was putting a file. Anybody want to see that through the docs walkthrough? We saw that last week, but, you know. And then for getting a file, we get the client, and then we say, with this bucket, get this file. Wait, that's putting. Which one did I just look at?
You have a
get
both,
file.
You have both put and get.
Oh, those are both there. Put.
Yeah.
There we go. There's get. And then we get a client, and this bucket, this object, reader, return the reader, and then we could read from it. And so whoever called this get file gives us a reader, defer the close of the reader, and then copy the reader to the response. And again, production code, error handling. That's like a huge caveat I should put at the beginning of my next web Go course. I don't do all the error handling because I just like to focus on the functionality and not have all the stuff in there. But you need to do it. All right, so that's get a file. And then media link. So here we have put file, and then instead of getting that file and returning a reader, right? Here we're getting the adders, the attributes. So the bucket, the object we want to get, and just give me the attributes. Well, what are the attributes? The attributes, adders gives us back object adders, a pointer to objects attributes. And object attributes are the bucket, the name, content type, content language, all this stuff, ACLs, owner, media link, okay? And last week we were wondering a little bit like, well, it's just downloading the file when I was using media link. So I researched that a little bit, and at this document here, media link's a media download link. So it's doing exactly what it should be doing. So media link lets you download a file when you use it. So how do we display a picture or something like that? That's what I did in this next one, display an image. And so for storage, I'm using put file right there, and no get file. And then in main, what's happening in file? Get SHA, file filter, upload a file. And then in cookie, put cookie. And then in main, let's see what's going on. We could upload a file or HTML. It's a form. And then if somebody's uploaded a file, get it, and from the form, and then actually upload it to our server. And upload file gives us back the file name. Just confirm that. Gives us back a string. Return name and whether or not there's an error. Where was I? There we go. And then we put into cookies, response request file name, and that gives us back a slice of all the file names. And then here we're ranging over all of the file names. This is what it is. So I just need the file names, and we're doing some HTML. And so I'm checking the extension here. I'm getting the extension, and if I'm not one of these files, so I think that I checked it when I put it. I'm also checking it when I get it out. Then I just put in this URL right here, and I add the file name, and that lets me get it. So let me show you how that works. 5105. And so if I go look at that Google Cloud console, go into my project, go into storage, and go into my bucket. Here are my two files. And then over here, I have public link. And so if I look at what public link is, storage, googleapis.com, learning1130appspot.com, file name. Same, storage, googleapis.com, /learning1130appspot.com, file name. So really all I need is this prefix, add the file name. And then it's serving it from Google. And if I haven't turned this on, I've uploaded a file and I haven't turned on public link, as soon as I use that URL and access the file, it figures, oh, you want to have that public, and it kicks it on. So I was looking through ACLs to see if there's some way to hey, or give me the public link or whatever, right, through my object attributes. But I don't know, you just use it and it turns it on. You just use that URL. So all I did was basically get the file name, and here's the URL, add the file name. The prefix is right here, and then add the file name, and it shows that file. And then I just added +K here as so break, and that displays the name right beneath it, right here, right? That's just showing the name. Pretty cool. So that's something we were kind of stumped on last week. We weren't getting to work. Then we have listing the files. So here we've transitioned from sort of all these files here down to just one file, right? Main. And from this point down, this is all code that's from Google Cloud Storage example. But I've just taken little pieces out and going to show it to you. So listing files, and I've taken out things which right? Like a lot of stuff that, okay, we don't need that, we don't need that, we don't need that. So the struct is context, the response, the bucket, and the client. There's my bucket. Handle func / goes to handler. Give me my context. And then storage, new client. Passing the context gives me my client. And then create a variable D of type demo and populate the fields, give values to the fields, and return the address. And now with that D, right, which is a pointer to demo, I have list files as a method. And I also have create files as a method. And I have create file as a method. And so I could say D, create files, D, list files. Sweet. So what's create files? Create files is going to say, it's going to write to the response. And I don't have to pass the response because it's just part of my struct. It's going to write to the response, creating more files for list bucket. And then it's going to range over this slice of strings. So foo, foo2, bar, bar1, bar2, boo. And it's going to call D create file, right, for whatever that file name is. So create file takes a file name, and it'll print out creating file GCS bucket, file name. So creating file, whatever the bucket is, / the file name. And then we have a D bucket object, file name, new writer. So this is stored in our struct, our variable of type pointer to demo is the bucket. And with that, we could do object, file name. So it's a bucket handle. Let me see, where is it? Client.bucket GCS gives us a bucket handle, gives us a bucket handle, pointer to bucket handle. And in the documentation, remember, we'd get a client, we'd get a bucket handle. Once we had a bucket handle, we could then, let me just show that. Cloud storage. So we do a new client, gives us a pointer to a client. With a pointer to a client, we could do a bucket, gives us a bucket handle. And once we have a bucket handle, we could say, okay, this object gives us an object handle, or list gives us an object list, right? So here we're saying client.bucket GCS bucket gives us the bucket handle. So down here, dbucket, we have the bucket pointer to bucket handle. With a pointer to bucket handle, we could call object. Object, pass in a file name, and that gives us an object handle. With an object handle, we have all those methods, and we could call new writer. Right here, gives us a writer, right? And so now that we have a writer to write the content, we could set the content type, text plain. And if there's an error, we could deal with the error. And WC write. So sorry, we're writing some stuff here. We're writing A, B, C, D, E. And if the error is not nil, handle it. So that's kind of cool. You could do an if statement where you run a statement right here. And then you could do a semicolon, and you could check the error, right? And then the scope of error is only right here for that one. And then we're going to write, slice of bytes, repeat F that many times. And we're writing that to our file. And then we're going to close. And if there's an error, deal with it. So that's Google code. It's kind of cool to see. And when we run this, right, we just created all these files. And each file is going to have a bunch of text written to it. So the files that were created were right here. These are the names of them. And we're passing in the file name, so you can see where the file gets created right there. And once we create the files, we can then list the files. So we're going to retrieve the file name. So we created a bunch of files. Now let's list them. So get a new client, bucket, and then list. And list gives us pointer to an object list. So again, in the documentation, we do new client. Right here we have a client.bucket, GCS bucket gives us a bucket handle. Client.bucket gives us client.bucket, new client, client.bucket. I have a client and I have a client bucket. I could have also just done right here, gotten rid of all that I think, and just done dbucket. We'll try that in a second. And list, but this spells it out a little bit more. So once we have a bucket handle, new client, bucket handle, we could do list. That gives us an object list. And an object list is right here, type object list, has these things, and then our adders, object adder attributes. So here we could do object results. And for each object, write the name. And if we watch list files, isn't that what I'm in? So if we watch here in Google Cloud, right, I only had those two files. Originally, I could get rid of them. But now you can see these other files got created. Created those files, and I could, you know, what text plane folders, right? Share publicly. I could click on that, see what that is. And so it did the A, B, C, D, E, and then F a whole bunch of times. It's what we asked it to do. Just wrote some text in there. And it says created files for list bucket, so it created those files. And then retrieve the file names. That's cool. Well, we can play around with object attributes. And this is the exact same deal. Let me run it. Except now we're going to print out some attributes. Go app severe. So I'm not going to delete the files. Got way too much open. Close that. Read that. Close 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 that. All right, so here I printed them out. So create more files. Did it create new files or just overwrite the old ones? Same ones, right? So just overwrote them. Retrieve the file names, then retrieve file stats. So you have all the attributes there, object attributes, just to look at them, or some of them. We saw this too, but this is Google's way of doing it. So I changed my way, and I said let's just look at Google way, but it's basically the same thing, except we're using this struct deal and attaching method. So we create the files, we list the files, and now we have stat files, so give me the file statistics. So a client, give me a list, right? And list returns an object list. Object list has results, which is a slice of object attributes. And so each one of these has attributes for the object, right? And so with my obj, I could range over the results, because remember, results is a slice. So I'm ranging over that slice, and I'm getting basically, and let me change the name of this, OBJ. There we go. So I'm just getting the object name. Stat files, and it's calling the stats for that file. And so here we're writing file stat, and then we're passing in, what are we passing in? It's attached to D. So all we're doing is passing in the file name. Is the file name? Just see something here. No, okay. Passing in the file name. So get the object and the attributes for that object, and then we call dump stats. I don't know if we need stat file in the middle there. I think we could just call dump stats, which takes a storage object attributes, because this is just going to be the object attributes. Because results objects is my pointer to that, which gives me results, which is a slice of object attributes. So as I go over each one, I get my object adders, and my object adders are exactly what this takes. So I can just call dump stats right here. Dump stats, object name, and that should still totally run. And then this one is no longer being used, stat file anywhere. Let's just confirm it. So it's reloaded. Hey, why doesn't it like it? Because I have dump steps as type pointer, an argument to dump stats. Cannot use object name type string as type pointer. Okay, so I need to change that part. Object name, stat file, dump stats. Dump stats takes just the object. There we go. See what happens. It's running. See a little dial going. So it's recreating all those files. I don't know why it takes so long to create the files. Kind of surprised me.
Just to upload them all into the bucket.
That's it. Yeah, so it just ran and it pulled them all out again. Retrieving file stats, file name. File name. I need a new line before my file names. Stat file, dump stats, so we can take this one out. Stat file. Not needed. And file name. That should clean it up. If you watch right here at the bottom, you should see a line appear right there. There we go. File name, right? Added a break between the files. Yeah. Question?
No question.
No question.
How you meant the waiting for local host line. You know, the line that pops up on the bottom of your browser screen that is telling you what the browser is doing. Thought you meant that line. Sorry.
That's all right. I don't know what you're talking about. Doesn't matter. No need to apologize. So here we're starting to get into the query. So here we have a query. And I don't want that side. I want this side. So max results. So we've seen that one before. But now it's it's with the, here's our demo struct. And then new context, new client. And here's our demo. Get that. Create files, list files, stat files. So stat files, stat file, dump stats. But we're just doing two files. And again, you know, with two files, here we go, list objects. And I like OBJ for the name of this better. that's more clear. And D stat file, but stat file basically calls dump stats and then passes in the object. So we could just get rid of stat file.
You would also need to change that name.
Thanks. There we go. And this is 08. So just limiting the results.
Looks like we also want to add a new line in front of file.
Oh, that's right. Wow, good catch. Max results 2. So here we have file stats, file name, and file name. We got 2 results.
Yeah, what was that program doing again? It was looking for, oh, it was only returning 2, right? Does it return the first 2, top 2, or does it return a specific 2?
Query represents a query to filter objects from a bucket. Delimiter returns results in directory-like fashion. Results will contain only objects whose names, aside from the prefix, do not contain delimiter. Objects whose names, aside from the prefix, contain delimiter will have their name truncated after delimiter, returned in prefixes. Duplicate prefixes are omitted. Oh, that's delimiter. Where's query? Max results. Max results, the maximum number of items plus prefixes to return. As duplicate prefixes are omitted, fewer total results may be returned. Request the default page limit is used if it is negative or 0. I don't know. I don't know how it chooses max results, what order.
Well, what were the files that they returned?
Bar and bar 1. So looks like alphabet. Well, bar and bar 1. So it looks like it just kind of, got these in this order.
So it pulled the first 2.
Yeah, I don't know.
Alphabetical, it looks like.
Looks alphabetical, yeah. All right, so that's a query, and then we could add a prefix in. So if we go look at our query, our query now is the prefix foo. So if I look at these files, it's only going to give me these 2. Right? I said, hey, if you have this prefix, give it to me. So that means we can start prefixing everything with a user ID, right, of some sort, and we'll be able to pull it out. If you use the session ID, it'll only last, you only be able to get the files while their session is current, and then they have a new session, a new ID, those files will be lost to them. So you'd need some permanent customer ID if you want those to permanently be accessible. You'd store that with the customer account, and then their session ID could change all the time. But you'd look to see what's their permanent customer ID and then get the files associated with their account permanently. So that's 09. So we should just get the foo files. So we got foo1 and foo2. Foo1, foo2. And clean this up. Yeah?
You did just have the query set to 2.
No, there's no max number or whatever that is. It's, well, let's see, where's the query? This bucket query. So query has max results. We just did prefixes. We didn't do any max results, just prefix.
So we could say do prefix and max results.
Sure. And then we do get the obj and dump stats. So that one jumped straight to dump stats, list files, create file. Create files, list the files, list bucket. That's cool. For whatever reason, I cleaned that one up already. 10. Do you guys just spend like all of your time doing coding? Like you're surprised about, whoa, this takes a lot of time. And you'll work on something like 6-8 hours. And then it's like, you show it to somebody and it's like 300 lines of code or something. And you explain it in 8 minutes. You're like, and they're like, oh yeah. You're like, why did that take me 8 hours? Anybody else have that experience? And it's like, well, all I do is all the time I'm working on my code. It's like sleep, school, class, work on my code, a little time for friends and family, go back to coding, right? Is that life? Is that your life?
I've been paid to work 10 hours a week, 13 hours in. Oops.
Yeah, on the first day, right? And you got like 6 days left. You're like, ah. It takes a lot of time. Like I put these examples together, like I was up late. Like let me go through the Google stuff, let me understand it, let me break out the parts, let me pull out the things which are unnecessary and just trim it down so you can see just this one piece of functionality and not like a piece of code with 600 lines but only 50, right? It's like, wow, that took a while to do all that. I don't know, did we just look at 09? Is that query prefix? We did query and we did query prefix. Yeah, we just did that one.
So next up is 10.
Oh, we were on 10. Okay. So prefix and delimiter. Create files, list files, results from lister with delimiter, results from lister without delimiter. So here we have a query and prefix and delimiter. So let me just show you this run and then it'll make sense. Running. And I have each example create the files. I could have just worked with the files that are there, but if they weren't there, then you wouldn't get anything back, so I figured just create them each time. And this one created different files. I added new files in. So you can see all the files I created. Okay. And that's starting to look like directory structure, right? Forward slashes and the file names. And so if I use listdir, if I use delimiters, I get back sort of one structure. If I do it without delimiters, I just get them all back. So let me show you what that looks like in the code. So listdir, bar, delimiter, space, no delimiter, space, okay, prefix. So what's listdir take? It takes a name, takes a delimiter, and takes an indent, so some spaces. And so here's my query. My prefix is going to be the name, so give me everything bar. All I got was bar, right? I didn't get any foo. So that was that's the prefix. Just give me things with the prefix bar. So there's also foo in there, but foo did not come back in the results. And then delimiter, for with the delimiter, right? We have the forward slash, there's a delimiter, and without, no delimiter, empty string. Okay. And then I do my, if query is not nil, oh, sorry. I do a loop. I missed the for. I'm like, why would I be checking if the query is not nil? I just created the query. I do the for loop. If the query is not equal to nil, then we're going to loop. And I guess somewhere in here,
Line 72.
I set the query to, yeah. But it's already queried it and it's gotten all the results, right? At that point. Query gives me back a struct with the delimiter prefix, no, versions, cursor,
You create this.
max results. So
if you put in max results, the query objects next would mean that you could get the next pages of results. So that you're not setting max results, so it'll give you back all of them in this case, in the first try.
So what is this checking here? This is just checking that these fields, this is
So,
not
no,
a
this is-
nil pointer, right?
No, line 72 is setting query to objects.next. So if you would set a max results of like 3 or something, it would get the first 3 from query, and
Yeah.
object objs dot
And then go to the
next
next
would
one.
be
It's
the
not
next
it's not
3.
empty yet, right?
Yeah. So no, the objs.next would be the next 3 if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
set max results to 3.
But eventually you'd run out.
Eventually, you'd run out, yes. And
And
you didn't
then-
actually specify a max results this case, though. So
Yeah.
it's giving you back them
All
all
of
in
them.
the first.
So it
place
just does
anyway.
the first loop and that's it.
Yeah.
So, but what's this checking right there? What's that checking?
Objs.next will be nil if there is no more nothing left.
But it seems like query is just
Query is getting changed on line 72.
It looks like it's a while loop almost. In
It
C++.
is. It is.
So while query is not nil, do
So
this.
query is not going to be nil first time through. Next time through, though, query is now equal to the results next. If we found
Oh.
everything,
so this is a variable shadowing.
no, it's not.
So
there's no
that's-
colon on line 72, so it's just replacing
so on
query.
line 72, it's resetting query to be the object's next. Now, if the object next is not nil, then we do another for loop.
Yeah.
But if object next is nil,
You're done.
you're done. First you finish up the rest of the code you have underneath it, then you're done.
Yeah, but what's query right here? Query right here
Query right there is the pointer to that struct
is
Yeah,
a
it's
pointer to a
this.
struct, and
Yeah.
it's not nil because
because you just created it.
we created it. And if it was like this,
Doesn't matter. You're still creating something there.
that's nil,
No, that's not nil. That's an empty query.
empty, because it's not a make deal. It's not a slice mapper channel.
Yeah.
Right. If it's a slice mapper channel, it would be nil because it hadn't been made.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool. All right. So here it's not nil.
So, yeah,
So that's the
first
first time
time-
it's equal to that.
Yeah, first time
But
through
then
it's
down
guaranteed
here,
not nil.
Objects next gives us a pointer to a query. Same deal. So it's a pointer to a query, and somewhere in that pointer to a query,
Eventually, it'll give you a nil pointer to a query to a nil pointer instead of a pointer to an actual query. So that point will be when there's no more results.
okay. So object next eventually will give you nil. Object next doesn't show anything, right? Just
Yeah.
gives us back.
It gives you back something with the same filtering, but if you'd set a max result or something, objects next will be the next.
There are
however
no
many
more
items.
results retrieve it as nil. Okay. All right. That makes sense. All right. So that's with the delimiter. So how does that change with the delimiter? We range over the object's results. We get our object, and then dent and the object name. So then dent and the object name, and then we range over the object prefixes, and we get the directory. In which case we call list dir again, and we pass in the directory, right, which is the prefix, the delimiter, and then dent plus a little bit more space. Okay. So the first time through, maybe it'd be helpful if I print this out. And that's what I want. wonder if I could do that. What's an object list?
Try %v instead of %s.
Slice of strings. All right, let's see if that works.
It builds on. Gotta wait for it to re-upload everything to the Google Cloud back.
So what did the percent? What was the difference between the %s and %v?
You can find that in the format package.
Basically, %s is for strings only, and %v is for any Go value.
Oh,
The value in default format.
So since it wasn't a string, it was a slice of strings. You could just use %s.
And default format for these things are these different ones. So string, that's the default format.
Yeah,
But with a slice, maybe I'll just figure it out. All right, so retrieving file names, and then here results from lister with delimiter. So here, my object, that's a nice addition. My object prefixes through this one, right? You can see the different prefixes. Hey, give me all the files with that prefix. Hey, give me all the files with this prefix. Give me all the files with this prefix, right? bar /. Okay, so you can see what object prefixes is doing. And then down here, there were no object prefixes because in this file, in one of them, I'm using a delimiter, and I'm saying, hey, the delimiter matters. In the other one, I'm not using a delimiter. And so in the one in which I'm using a delimiter, and if we read about what delimiter does, delimiter returns results in directory-like fashion. Results will contain objects whose names, aside from the prefix, do not contain delimiter. Results will contain only objects whose names, aside from the prefix, do not contain delimiter. Objects whose names, aside from the prefix, contain delimiter will have their name truncated after the delimiter returned in prefixes. Duplicate prefixes are omitted. Optional. That's kind of hard for me to understand.
So basically, it takes all the results, it takes the prefix off of all your results. So your prefix would be bar /, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it takes the prefix off. Now it looks at all of them again. If it does not have your delimiter, in this case /, so bar. So right now it's just looking at like 1 or 2, because the bar / is already taken off. So it's just the 1 or the 2. It says, okay, these do not have delimiter in them. So these go into results. And then it looks at, okay, it's nonce/1, nonce/2. It says, okay, these have got the delimiter, the slash in them. So that instead, cut that off and put the first part, nonce/ into prefixes.
Yeah, and it happens a little bit, it happens recursively here. So range over the object results, right? So when we have, let's look at the one with the delimiter. The object results are going to be just bar. That's going to be the first object result because we have prefix and the name is bar, and we have a delimiter /. And so if I look at my results here, all I get back is bar. That's it. Bar, and then it stops at the /. And so everything else has a /. So it just says bar, and then, oh, the rest of those bar is a folder. It's not a file, right? And so here I got back bar, and then it says, okay, return object prefixes. Object prefixes is bar /. Bar / is the next object prefix, right? That's the prefix. We have bar, which came back, and we have bar /. So that's why you see bar / here, that printed out. Now I'm going to range over my object prefixes. Well, I have bar /. That's it, right? That's it. That's all that's in that slice. So that's my new directory. So I pass in that as my lister, right? That's the new prefix. I should probably change this as prefix. Yeah.
never mind.
And then my delimiter is the same delimiter. It's a /. I'm just going to add in an indent. So now my new one is bar /. So it says, all right, well, here's the things with the prefix of bar forward slash. My first prefix was just bar, right? So it gave me this one. My next prefix was bar forward slash, so it gives me these two. And things that have bar forward slash, well, you know what? These also are not files, but they have more folders, more delimiters. So I'm just going to return those as bar notes, right? Bar notes is the next sort of path, because we already had bar forward slash. Now we're going to the next one. So the next prefix is bar notes. So that becomes my next prefix. And then I pass that prefix in, delimiter, and indent a little bit more. It says, okay, give me everything with bar notes, forward slash. Prints out these two files, 1, 2, and then bar notes compadre is my next prefix. So passes that in, gets me 1, 2. Whereas if I don't have a delimiter, just gives me everything. It says you have no prefixes, right? But when I do have a delimiter, it says, well, here's your file, and then here's everything else. That all had prefixes. It had stuff before the delimiter, the forward slash. And the first time through, it just said, hey, here's your first prefix, forward slash bar, right? And so that gave me all these right there. And then I say, well, that's my prefix, forward slash bar. Okay, well, you got these two files. I'll give you those files with forward slash bar. And by the way, there's another prefix there. Go in one more level from forward slash bar forward slash to the next delimiter, and we got notes forward slash. It's a little bit to wrap your head around. But if you figure this out, you'll get like some Harry Potter magic wand superpower to defeat the arch nemesis, dark angel of the internet, and have higher performance than everybody else coding in PHP or Python or Ruby. Huh? Yeah, that's totally worth it if you ask me. And not only Harry Potter, but also Harriet Potter. I don't know if you know his sister. She's so good, nobody knows about her. She was able to stay out of the media because she's smart. I think homework, should you put together an example that works with prefixes? Do Wednesday.